1 hour to change your life forever. Hello everyone, let me ask you a question. What if just 1 hour could change the trajectory of your entire life? Now, I'm not talking about magic or shortcuts. I'm talking about intention. We all get 24 hours in a day. But how many of those hours do we use with purpose? How many do we use reactively, responding to emails, social media, chasing other people's agendas? And how many do we dedicate to building the life we actually want? 1 hour. That's all I'm asking you to invest. But this hour has to be different. This can't be just any hour. It has to be the kind of hour where you shut out the noise and go inward. The kind of hour where you reflect, refocus, and reconnect with your why. Because if you don't know why you do what you do, why you get up in the morning, then no amount of success will ever feel fulfilling. You'll keep climbing a ladder. That's leaning against the wrong wall. Everyone is given the same 24 hours in a day. No one gets extra time because they're smarter, wealthier, or more successful. And yet, some people seem to achieve extraordinary things with their time, while others feel constantly overwhelmed or stuck. Difference isn't in the amount of time we have, it's in the intention with which we use it. That's the hidden power of just 1 hour. It's not the quantity of time that changes your life, it's the quality and focus of that time. We live in a world that constantly demands our attention. Notifications, deadlines, meetings, social obligations, they all pull us in different directions. Most of us spend our days reacting. We wake up and immediately check our phones. We jump from task to task without asking why we're doing what we're doing. We're busy, but not always productive. We're active, but not always intentional, and that's where most of our time gets lost. Not in laziness, but in unconscious activity. We're moving, but we're not always moving in the right direction. Now imagine taking just 1 hour 60 minutes out of the 440 you get each day, and using it deliberately. Hour with no distractions, no email, no noise, just you and your thoughts. That hour could be spent asking yourself deep, uncomfortable questions. What matters to me? Am I living in alignment with my values? Am I becoming the person I want to be? Most people never stop long enough to ask themselves these things, but the ones who do, that small percentage of people willing to reflect, often discover that they've been living by accident instead of on purpose. When you bring intention into your life, even 1 hour can have a powerful ripple effect. That hour might show you that the job you've been holding on to no longer fulfills you. It might remind you of a dream you buried years ago. It might push you to make a phone call you've been avoiding or start a project you've been delaying. In that space of clarity, your next steps become obvious. Not because someone else told you what to do, because you finally listened to yourself. And here's what's amazing. Once you experience the clarity and focus that one intentional hour brings, it becomes addictive. You realize how much time you've been wasting on things that don't matter. You start looking for more moments in your day to be intentional. You begin to structure your schedule around what fuels you rather than what drains you. Your mindset shifts, your priorities shift, and soon your life begins to change, not because you added more hours, but because you used the ones you already had with purpose. The truth is, we don't lack time. What we lack is alignment. We chase productivity tips and time management hacks, but none of those matter if we're not being honest about where we're going. If the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall, climbing it faster won't help. But 1 hour of deep, intentional reflection can show you where the right wall is. So don't underestimate what 1 hour can do. It won't fix everything overnight, but it can start the process. It can open your eyes. It can realign your choices with your purpose. That hour, when used intentionally, can be the most important hour of your life. Not because it changes the world, but because it changes your world, from the inside out. We live in a culture that celebrates success titles, income, achievements, accolades. From a young age, we're conditioned to chase these things as if they are the ultimate measure of a meaningful life. But what many people discover, sometimes too late, is that even when you reach the top of the ladder, it can still feel empty if you don't understand why you climbed it in the first place. That's the power of knowing your why. It's not just a motivational slogan or a trendy idea. It's the very foundation of purpose-driven living. Without a clear sense of why you do what you do, you risk building a life that looks good on the outside but feels hollow on the inside. Your why is your core belief. It's the reason you get out of bed in the morning that goes deeper than just going to work or meeting expectations. It's the cause, purpose, or belief that inspires you to act. When you know your why, decisions become easier. You gain clarity in moments of uncertainty. You can say no to the distractions that don't serve you because you know what you're saying yes to. But when you don't know your why, you end up chasing goals that were never truly yours, goals handed down to you by family, society, or comparison, and even when you reach them, they don't satisfy you. So many people are working hard, achieving more, and feeling less fulfilled. That's not a failure of work ethic, it's a failure of alignment. Purpose isn't found in the amount of effort you give, it's found in the direction that effort is pointed. When your actions and goals are aligned with your deeper why, you experience a sense of meaning that no external reward can replace. You can work long hours and still feel energized because you know what it's for. You can face setbacks and stay resilient because your motivation runs deeper than surface-level success. Knowing your why also changes how you show up in relationships. It brings authenticity. People are drawn to those who are connected to something meaningful. Leaders who communicate their why don't just manage, they inspire. Friends who understand their why connect more deeply. Partners who live with purpose love with more clarity. It's not about having all the answers. It's about being honest about what drives you. Finding your why isn't always easy. It takes reflection, honesty, and sometimes confronting truths you've been avoiding. It might mean admitting that you've been chasing someone else's dream. It might mean making changes that feel uncomfortable. But the discomfort of that process is nothing compared to the regret of never having tried. The good news is your why is already inside you. It's not something you have to invent. It's something you uncover. Think back to the moments in your life when you felt most alive, most fulfilled, most proud. What were you doing? Who were you helping? What values were you honoring? The answers to those questions will lead you to your why. Once you discover your why, you begin to live differently. You set goals that matter. You create habits that align with who you truly are. You stop competing with others because your path becomes uniquely yours. Fulfillment becomes the measure of success, not just performance. You stop needing constant validation from the outside because the motivation comes from within. Ultimately, your why is the compass that guides your journey. Without it, you drift. With it, you lead. Whether you're a student, a parent, an entrepreneur, or anyone in between, your life becomes more powerful when it's driven by purpose. So take the time to find it, revisit it often, and let it shape the way you live, work, and connect. Because when you know your why, you stop surviving and start living. In the fast pace of everyday life, most people rarely pause to think deeply about where they are going or why they're doing what they're doing. We run from one obligation to the next, checking boxes, replying to messages, solving problems. Yet we seldom stop to ask whether any of it aligns with what we truly want. That's why taking just 1 hour for honest self-reflection can be life-changing. It's not about being dramatic, it's about being deliberate. 1 hour of silence and honesty can break months, or even years, of mental noise and confusion. That single hour, when used with intention, can reveal truths that have been buried under the surface for far too long. Reflection forces you to face yourself, not the version of yourself that you present to the world, but the real you, the one behind the roles and responsibilities. In that space, you can ask meaningful questions. Am I happy with the direction my life is going? Am I proud of how I show up for the people I care about? Am I chasing what matters or just what's next? These are not casual questions. They're uncomfortable, confronting, and at times humbling. But they are necessary. Because if you never stop to question the path you're on, you might end up somewhere you never truly wanted to be. The power of self-reflection lies in the clarity it brings. When everything around you feels chaotic, reflection is the moment you return to center. It's like zooming out on a map. You see not just where you are, but how you got there, and more importantly, where you're headed. Sometimes we keep pushing forward simply because we're too afraid to stop and admit we might need to change direction. But change doesn't start with movement, it starts with awareness. That awareness comes when you give yourself permission to be still. People often think they need a complete life overhaul to feel better, quit their job, move cities, end relationships. But sometimes what they really need is an hour to get honest. In that time, you might realize you've been neglecting what truly matters: your health, your family, your creativity, your peace. You might remember a dream that once gave you energy and wonder why you let it fade. You might come face to face with fear, fear of failure, of judgment, of being vulnerable, and realize that fear has been running the show longer than you'd like to admit. This isn't about guilt or regret. It's about realignment. Reflection doesn't criticize you, it guides you. It doesn't tell you what you should do, it helps you hear what your own inner voice has been trying to say all along. That voice often gets drowned out in the noise of the world, but it's still there, waiting for your attention. And here's the remarkable thing: once you experience the clarity that comes from deep reflection, you start to crave more of it. You begin to carve out time, not just for tasks and meetings, but for thinking, dreaming, and evaluating. You make decisions with more confidence because they're rooted in self-knowledge, not external pressure. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. And over time, your life begins to shift. Not all at once, but steadily and meaningfully. We often think of transformation as a big moment, but sometimes it begins in the quietest hour. An hour without distractions, an hour with just a journal, a question, and the courage to answer it truthfully. That hour can change your perspective, and your perspective can change your entire life. So don't underestimate the value of pausing. Don't dismiss the idea of dedicating an hour to yourself. It's not selfish, it's essential, because in that hour you might just find the clarity, direction, and strength you've been searching for all along. In a world that constantly measures success by titles, income, and recognition, it's easy to forget that the most meaningful lives are rarely about personal achievement alone. They are about impact, about who we help, who we uplift, and how we leave the world just a little better than we found it. When you begin to shift your mindset from success to significance, everything changes. You stop asking, "What can I get?" and start asking, "What can I give?" That shift is what gives life depth. It's what turns ambition into purpose and effort into legacy. Most people go through life pursuing goals that are entirely self-centered, not out of arrogance, but simply because that's the narrative they were handed. Study hard, get a good job, earn money, buy things, retire comfortably. And there's nothing inherently wrong with any of that. But if those things are the only markers of a life well lived, then even when we attain them, we may find ourselves asking, is this all there is? Fulfillment doesn't come from accumulation, it comes from contribution. It comes from knowing that someone else's life is better because of you, that you mattered, not just in your own story, but in the lives of others. When you start thinking in terms of impact, your focus shifts. You begin to pay attention to how your words affect people, how your actions ripple outward, how your presence either lifts others or weighs them down. This doesn't mean you have to start a nonprofit or change careers. Impact isn't always about scale, it's about intention. A kind word at the right moment, a gesture of support, the decision to listen deeply. These seemingly small acts often leave the biggest imprint. We underestimate how much influence we have, not in grand gestures, but in everyday choices. People remember how you made them feel. Long after they forget your resume or accomplishments, they will remember the times you showed up when it mattered, the moments you were honest, generous, or compassionate. When you live with impact in mind, you become more present. You stop rushing through interactions. You begin to see others not just as background characters in your story, but as human beings with their own battles, dreams, and needs. And that awareness deepens your relationships. It brings a richness to your life that no paycheck or promotion ever could. Living for impact also brings resilience when life gets hard, and it inevitably will. Having a purpose beyond yourself gives you the strength to keep going. It's easy to quit when the reward is only for you. But when you know others are depending on you, when you know your efforts are tied to something bigger, it creates a deeper kind of drive. You begin to endure with grace, not just for yourself, but for those you serve, support, and inspire. And here's the beautiful part. When you focus on impact, success often follows. Not because you chased it, but because people are drawn to those who uplift them. Opportunities come to those who lead with purpose. Relationships flourish where generosity lives. Influence grows when it's rooted in authenticity and care. Living for impact doesn't mean sacrificing your dreams. It means aligning them with something meaningful so that when you reach them, they actually feel worth it. So ask yourself not just, what do I want to achieve? But who will benefit if I do? Ask, Whose life will change because I showed up fully today? That's the question that leads to a different kind of fulfillment, not fleeting but lasting, not shallow but deep. A life of real meaning isn't measured by how much you've earned or how far you've gone. It's measured by how many lives you've touched along the way. That's the impact that matters. And that's the legacy worth building. In a world that constantly urges us to think big, dream big, and make massive changes overnight, it's easy to overlook the quiet, steady power of small steps. We are often drawn to dramatic transformation, the idea that one bold move will change everything. The truth is, real, lasting change doesn't come in sudden bursts. It comes in small, deliberate actions taken consistently over time. One intentional step today may seem insignificant on its own, but over weeks, months, and years, those steps accumulate into profound transformation. The difference between where you are now and where you want to be often begins with one small, committed decision. People hesitate to start because they think they need to have it all figured out. They wait for perfect timing, perfect conditions, or perfect clarity before they act. But waiting for perfection only leads to paralysis. The key is not to do everything at once, but to start where you are with what you have. It could be as simple as setting aside 10 minutes to reflect, making one phone call, saying no to one thing that drains your energy, saying yes to one thing that aligns with your values. These small actions, when rooted in purpose, can ignite a chain reaction of positive change. We often underestimate the power of momentum. Taking one step forward creates a shift in energy. It builds confidence. It tells your mind and body, I am moving. And movement, no matter how small, progress, you don't need to see the entire staircase to take the first step. That first step may be unclear, even scary, but it teaches you something. It gives you feedback. It reveals what works, what doesn't, and where to adjust. You learn by doing, not by waiting. What's most powerful about small steps is their ability to bypass overwhelm. When the goal is too big, it can feel distant and intimidating. Write a book sounds overwhelming, but write 200 words today feels doable. Change your career might feel paralyzing, but update your resume this week is manageable. When we break down our goals into bite-sized pieces, we make progress accessible. We shift from dreaming into doing, and doing, even in small doses, creates results. Small steps also help build trust in yourself. Every time you follow through on a small action, you send yourself a message. I keep my promises. I take my goals seriously. I'm capable of change. Over time, that builds self-respect and internal confidence that no external validation can replace. This is how people rebuild their lives after setbacks. One step, one choice, one moment of courage at a time. And it's not just about achieving personal goals. Small steps can create powerful ripple effects in your relationships, your community, and your environment. A simple gesture of kindness, a thoughtful conversation, a moment of patience. These things may seem minor, but they carry immense weight in the lives of others. You don't always see the immediate impact, but that doesn't mean it isn't there. Sometimes the smallest step you take becomes the most meaningful step in someone else's life. The beauty of small steps is that they're always available. You don't need a new job, a new city, or a perfect plan to begin. You just need the willingness to start, the willingness to try, to risk a little, to move forward without knowing every answer. Each small step reinforces a belief that change is possible and you are capable of making it happen. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't get lost in the myth that transformation has to be massive to be meaningful. Start small, stay consistent. Let the small step today lead to another tomorrow. Before you know it, you'll look back and realize those tiny steps have carried you a long way. That is how real change happens, not all at once, but one intentional, courageous step at a time. We often convince ourselves that life transformation requires perfect timing, massive effort, or complete clarity. We tell ourselves we're not ready yet, that we need more resources, more experience, or more support before we begin. But the truth is, you don't need more time or a perfect plan to change your life. You need purpose. Purpose is the fuel behind every meaningful decision, every breakthrough, and every lasting transformation. When you connect with your deeper purpose, everything else begins to make sense. You stop hesitating and start acting. You stop chasing distractions and start building something real. Purpose gives direction to your energy. Without it, even the most productive person can feel lost. You might be busy, always doing something, but if it's not aligned with what truly matters to you, it can feel empty. When you don't have a strong why behind your actions, motivation fades, decisions become harder, and burnout sets in more quickly. But with purpose, even the hardest challenges become bearable because they feel meaningful. You know what you're working toward, and that clarity brings strength. You become willing to endure discomfort, to keep going when others quit, because there is something greater pulling you forward. Transformation isn't about overhauling your entire life in one sweeping gesture. It starts with a simple, courageous commitment to listen to that inner voice that's been whispering all along. The voice that says you were made for more. The voice that reminds you of the impact you're meant to have. Purpose turns that whisper into conviction. It roots you in something beyond your circumstances. Even when things feel uncertain, when fear creeps in, or when progress seems slow, purpose keeps you anchored. It reminds you that your path matters, that your effort counts, and that your life is not just about surviving but about becoming. We often think of purpose as something grand or unreachable, something reserved for extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. But purpose is often simple. It's about showing up with intention. It's about using your strengths to serve something beyond yourself. It might be the way you raise your children, the way you care for your clients, or the way you lift up the people around you. Purpose isn't about being famous. It's about being faithful to your values, to your calling, to your contribution. Once you find your purpose, it begins to shape the way you see the world. You become more aware of what deserves your time and what doesn't. You begin to make decisions with more confidence because you have a framework for choosing. You start to create boundaries not out of selfishness, but out of respect for your mission. You begin to live with intention, not reaction. And slowly, sometimes without even noticing, your life begins to transform. Not from the outside in, but from the inside out. When you operate from purpose, you naturally begin to inspire others. People are drawn to clarity, authenticity, and conviction. They feel it when someone is grounded in something real. You don't have to preach it or prove it. It shows in how you live, how you treat people, and how you pursue your goals. Purpose gives your life a kind of gravity. It centers you. It pulls the right opportunities, the right people, and the right energy toward you. The best part is that purpose is always available to you. It's not something you earn, it's something you remember. It lives in your story, your pain, your passions, your values. You don't need to wait for a perfect moment to reconnect with it. All it takes is a willingness to pause, to reflect, and to ask yourself, what truly matters to me? What kind of person do I want to become? What do I want to give to the world? When you begin to answer those questions honestly, you don't just find your purpose, you begin to live it. And that's when everything starts to change.